Ramsey, there's a question for you here.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you want to field this.
So it's Alvaro. Hey, Alvaro, it's good to see you, and or I guess see your picture. What you're and he's saying what you're saying about where public answers is true, except if you work for a company where the pre-sales are not leading the opportunity together with the sales team. I agree. I mean, we have a lot of different aspects to sales engineering. When we're not leading the opportunity together with the sales team, generally speaking, for me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alvaro, that means that we're coming in during the demo. Mostly, we're coming in doing a demo and leaving. But even during that, we have a bigger responsibility. We're talking more, sure, which is why this session I think it would be useful because we want to avoid having filler words. We want to have an agenda, be concise, and all that. But still, we can be public askers. The thing that I see when we're doing that, when we're pre-sales who come in for the demo, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Alvaro, if we're coming in for the demo, is that we're assuming everything that the salesperson told us is right, and in many cases, it's half right. It's not. It doesn't have all the information, and we still need a lot of information to understand and to actually speak to the customer in a way that would resonate with them. So yes, we do have to speak. We always have to speak. When someone asks a question, I say we're public askers. So we can ask a question, the customer would respond, and then we'd have to provide our own answer to their response. So we do have that. And the tip that I was given at the time is if in the moment you don't know if you're speaking too much, if you're sharing too much, you can stop and ask, did I answer your question? Or am I oversharing? I like to ask that.
Yeah.
Am I on the right path for you? It doesn't mean that we don't talk. I mean, obviously, you and I, Dan, we're doing that right now, and it's not something I enjoy. Like, I don't enjoy talking for a long period of time because I don't know if I am on the right track. Right now, in this moment, in my head, I'm thinking, am I rambling? I'm
You're
gonna
good.
pause
You're
here
good.
and say, Dan, am I rambling? So,
Lovely.
yeah, and that's what I mean by being public askers and having the ability to be concise.
Great, got that. I just want to point out the comment that Chris made. Yeah, saying that filler language tends to happen when the mouth gets ahead of the brain. So you have to learn to force the mouth to be still until the brain gives it the words to use. Yeah, fantastic. That's a great point.
We have a lot
Rand,
of famous
sorry,
people
what are
on
you going to say?
this call. I was just gonna say we have a lot of famous people on this
Famous
call.
people, yeah.
I pretty much know a lot of you guys, so I'm happy you guys are here. Chris,
That's
I
great,
appreciate
yeah.
you being here. Alvaro, thank you for coming. Gary, Alvin, you guys are amazing. Thank you for being here.
Yeah,
And
I
everybody,
appreciate it
I
too,
can't say everybody's name, but yeah, you know who you are.
yeah. Ramsey, I'm now confused because we've done a lot of back and forth, but is it your tip next?
I think
I
you
think it is.
mentioned avoid filler words, so yeah, it is my
It's your
turn.
tip next, yeah.
Thank you, Alvaro, for agreeing. And this brings me to the kind of what we were talking about with Alvaro. Ask engaging questions. Again, we're public askers. We do have to speak, but we're also public askers. And even if we're doing a presentation, I always script a couple questions in my presentations, and I don't go more than 2 slides without pausing and asking questions beyond, do you have any questions? Whenever I ask that question, do you have any questions? The answer is pretty much always no. But I usually alleviate that by asking questions about what we're talking about. Okay, Dan, I just mentioned this. What are your thoughts specifically around that? Or how do you see this working in your environment? Or how would you use this now that we've talked about it? I always like to script, whether it's a demo, whether it's a presentation, whatever it is, whenever we're meeting with a customer, I always have a couple questions in the back of my mind ready to go so that I can keep them with me. As soon as I've had this situation, like we're talking right now, Alvaro asked questions, Chris commented. Well, Alvaro commented and Chris commented. I've heard people say, and Bill commented on one of my posts earlier, saying, "Hold your questions to the end." And Bill's response, like, "Are they in sales engineering? Do they know their job?" And so we want people to communicate with us. We want to be able to get information as much as possible from our customers, from our salespeople. Let's say we're jumping into, like Alvaro, we're jumping into a demo and we don't have as much information as possible. We need to ask those questions to our salespeople counterparts. So I'm going to pause here for a second. Dan, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I like that. I like the fact that you said every 2 slides. Is that something you stick to rigorously, or is that depending on?
It's
Yeah.
the way I see it is every time it depends on the density of the slide. So if there's one slide where I'm talking about for 5 minutes, well, that's, I guess, a very dense slide. And, I'd have to break it up using questions. And it could be because it's a corporate slide. I would never build a slide where I'd have to do that. But it's more about feeling. And if I'm talking about something that's, let's say I did a discovery with a customer and they mentioned something specific. And as I'm going through the slide, I hit on what they were talking about. At that point, I have to pause and ask to make sure that I answered their questions. Slides, who uses slides? Yeah. It's by feel at this point. But if you're starting off your career as a sales engineer or as a salesperson and you want to be more engaging, you can have a question at every slide. It doesn't really matter. And you can gauge the conversation. Sometimes too many questions, they're like, why is this guy interrogating me?
Yeah.
And too little is like, this guy doesn't care about me. So you will find the balance as you get better at sales engineering.
Yeah. I guess the skill as well is to ask the right kind of open questions, which is a challenge in itself.
Yeah. That's why if you script it, it's better.
Yeah.
If you have the questions ready, you won't forget to ask yes. You won't have to ask yes or no questions. It's more.
What about a lot of people I speak to? Their big fear is being asked challenging questions throughout the presentation. Obviously, they understand they have to ask questions, but also worry about being asked difficult questions. Would you? Some of the advice I would give is to try and anticipate what kind of questions are going to come up, or even what kind of objections might occur during the presentation. Is that something you do, Ramsey?
Yeah, and this comes with practice. There's always something surprising. So Chris is here. Chris Waite's here. He's the author of the 6 Habits of Highly Effective People.
I'm reading the book.
Yeah, so he has the process of this, like the 4 Ds. And Chris is gonna kill me later because I can't remember all of them. But, defer, direct. Chris, forgive me, but basically, depending on who's asking the question and the relativity, like what's the good word? See, that's where my immigrant is coming out. I can't think of the right word. Where how useful that question is to the conversation. You can either choose to answer it. You can choose to ask more clarifying questions about why they're asking that question. What's their purpose? You can't anticipate everything, but the more meetings you have, the more questions, the more objections you have in your repertoire. In terms of like, they asked me this question last time, so this time if they ask me this, I'll answer it that way. Nothing is clear from day one. Practice. I mean, again, our kids, my kids, I know they were born and they didn't know how to sit up straight, and now they're running around, and it didn't happen overnight. They're 7, 6, and 7 and 5. They had to learn how to walk. They had to learn how to run, and we're expecting people to become SEs, and day one they're already experts. They're not. They're gonna fail miserably, and that's the hard part about, like, whenever you grow up. Like, I went to study did jiu-jitsu for 6 months. I sucked really bad at it. I was frustrated. Like, why do I suck so bad at jiu-jitsu? I mean, like, I know how to. I'm a strong man. I know how to do this.
Yeah,
but it's a skill. Like everything else, you're gonna have to learn it.
Yeah, I also think, just to chip in about presentation skills, you have kind of standard presentation skills, your sort of very traditional presentation, but it's a full spectrum. So you have the more intimate style of presentation that you're used to with pre-sales. So I imagine people, when they come in first time, they maybe know how to do your traditional presentation, but they need to adapt and make it more interactive, which, it takes confidence to be able to ask and field those questions during the presentation.
100%.